Okay, moving on now to fishing methods. We're going to be talking about some of the most common fishing methods in use around the world. But what I also want to do is focus on the impact of fishing methods, not just on fish stocks, but on the marine environment itself. So we'll be looking at commercial fishing activity from the point of view of its impact on the ecosystem as a whole, and thinking about the long-term viability of some of the practices involved. Human beings use an incredible variety of techniques to catch fish. Some of them are very innovative, some are less innovative. At one end of the scale, you have a simple handheld line with a hook at the end, which is the low-tech method, which has been in use for thousands of years, as far as we can tell. At the other end, when you're talking about high-value catch, you find complex and high-investment methods in use. So, for example, off the east coast of the United States, we find bluefin tuna being tracked by spotter planes and being shot with electrified harpoons from high-speed boats. You might think that's extreme, but the reality is that a large bluefin can be worth tens of thousands of dollars on the open market. So you could argue that the return on investment makes it worth it. However, those are the extremes. In general, a commercial fishing gear can be divided into two categories, active and passive. Active gear is usually some kind of net that's towed behind a boat, and this operates in one of two ways. The first is when it's towed along the seabed and basically scoops up, gathers up whatever's there. That's the familiar trawl net, which is in use all over the world, but obviously is limited by the depth of the ocean. Then there's the giant seine net, which is used to encircle large schools of deep water oceanic fish, such as tuna. But there are other kinds of active gear, spears, harpoons, dynamite. They're all classed as active gear. Passive gear works differently, as the name suggests. Put simply, what happens is the gear is put into the water and the fish are caught when they move into the gear. So one example of this would be the gill net. These are left to float in the open ocean, and the fish swim in and get caught by the gills and basically can't escape. Another typical example is the long line method, which is miles and miles of fishing line with thousands of baited hooks on it, which again are intended to catch basically whatever comes along. Other types of passive gear would include lobster pots and various kinds of fish traps. Now, one of the main impacts of these methods is that although they are designed to be selective in terms of what they catch, in practice they're not as selective as their users would like them to be. That is to say, while fishermen obviously want their equipment to catch only the target species, there are always compromises in terms of efficiency and cost. And so one of the main impacts is that there is a lot of bycatch. By this we mean species caught that are non-target species, and these can include endangered fish species, turtles, seabirds, marine mammals like dolphins. So what we have here are large-scale, efficient methods and increasing intensity and diversity of fishing operations worldwide. And these have major environmental costs attached. One of these, as we've seen, is bycatch, but there are other impacts too, both on ocean species and on the habitat itself. I'm going to be talking about the impact on fish stocks and the collapse of fish populations around the world, which is obviously another issue of grave concern. And then we're going to look at the effects on the marine environment itself, particularly the damage to the seabed, to coral reefs and to coastal ecosystems like the kelp forests.